You should now see a module, I published it this morning, that says WebAssign. It says WebAssign-PHA 2020-21. You're going to click on that link. You should get a different place, right? You should get something that says sign up or sign in. Does that make sense? Yes. Ella, will you do me a huge favor? Will you be my guinea pig and will you screenshot your steps and send it to me so I can like put together a guide? Okay, so screenshot that. All right, now you're going to, I'm assuming none of you have ever used WebAssign before, so you're going to create an account. When you do this, it should pull over your information from Canvas, right? Do you see your name and your email there? Yes, perfect. Go ahead and create the account.
Wait, Miss Chris, you said it's modules?
Modules, you should now see a WebAssign module. It's the third thing. So it's first is Zoom, then general, then WebAssign. Okay, once you get in, so let me make sure you should see my class. Do you see this? I hate that I'm not in front of you. Yes, you're seeing it. Thank you, Claire. Okay, so let me go in. So some of these are multiple choice, some of them are graphing. The multiple choice obviously are not so bad to type in. The graphing can get a little bit frustrating. If you can't get the hang of the dot, so usually if you drop a dot and then you drop another dot, it will make the line. But if you get frustrated, let me see if I do this. Like, I don't know if it'll let me do it on here. Because I'm within, yeah. Yeah, it won't let me do it because I'm within explain everything. But it should let you do it. You drop a point and then you drop another point and it will let you create those lines. If you get frustrated in any way, shape, or form on the graphing, then what you are going to do is screenshot that graph, pull it into Notability, and draw the line there. Even if WebAssign marks your answer as wrong, I am checking your work. So you have a WebAssign score that's going to be part of what I'm looking at, but you also have to show the work, and that's the other thing I'm looking at. When you get down, so notice it says submit answer after every question. If you start your homework in like right after school and you want to do a couple questions and then come back to it later, submit every question as you go so that it saves your progress. People who don't submit and then they get logged out, logged back in, it loses all that work and you don't want to do that. Obviously, that's super frustrating. So you want to submit each one as you go and it will grade each one as you go and it will tell you if you're right. You have 3 chances for these. So if you make a mistake the first time, you can retry it 2 more times before it's graded wrong and stuck, okay? Pay attention to how things are typed in. Just like you had to do on your quiz, the format's going to be picky. So if it gives you, and I don't think it's going to happen there. On some of these questions, you see on the right, like when I click into that box, on the right-hand side, I get this thing that says CalcPad. This is your equation editor. So you would use things from here like fractions. There's going to be my fraction, okay? If I want to use square roots, which won't happen in tonight's homework, but if you had a square root, all of those functions are going to be there in that little calc pad. Are you with me? Yes? If you type in X and it's a capital X and it's supposed to be a lowercase x, it's going to mark it wrong. So be careful. It's picky about stuff like that. The good news is that I will go back in and look at your work, and if your equation's right but just that's wrong, like how you typed it in is wrong, I will give you back the credit on your homework. So the rule on WebAssign, and you'll see it on the rubric for the homework, is 80 to 100 on WebAssign with work is 100 on Canvas. If it drops below, then every question you get wrong, which you're going to show me the little box at the top, every question you get wrong, I go to your work. And if your work is reasonable, but maybe you made one little mistake here or there, I bump it back up to the 100. So it's not that if you get a score in WebAssign, it's horrible, okay? If you get like 23s and stuff like that in WebAssign, now we have a little cause for concern. And if you're skipping questions and you're getting those wrong, then your score will drop. But if you are doing all of the work, and you're making the attempt on WebAssign, okay, I will go back in and I will adjust your Canvas score. Once you submit this, you're going to get this results box at the top that says your total score. Now notice there's 10 questions, and only 6 of them are shown at a time here. I need that whole results box. So if that means 2 screenshots, then you have to do 2 screenshots. Somehow, when you're on the app and you split screen it with Notability, you get the whole WebAssign box. It's some sort of a glitch that's actually a positive because that's what we want. So if you split your screen between like Canvas WebAssign, because WebAssign will pop up within Canvas, and Notability, it will actually give you the full box. The other tip I will tell you is that if you go into Safari, so if I go into Safari and I go to WebAssign, because WebAssign you now have an account for, which of course I won't have my password saved, but WebAssign you now have an account for, which means you can go straight to webassign.net. You don't have to get there from the module. If you come in here and I click on the 1.1 homework, let me preview this. Preview. Now notice this is multi-page, right? This is a lot of pages. If you take a screenshot from Safari, when you load that little preview, at the top it says screen or full page. If I click full page, look what happens. It creates a PDF for me of my entire page. Now I can just take this and open it in Notability, and you don't have to screenshot individual questions. Does that make sense? Now I can work through the questions on Notability. There's the whole thing. Let me go back to Notability. Where'd I just put it? I have no idea where I just put it. Wherever it just went. Okay, I can open it up in Notability. I can work it out, and I can split my screen with Safari or with the app, and I can be putting in my answers. But at the very end, what you should be submitting to me is your homework with the screenshot of your score at the top, and then all your work underneath, which I actually think, if I remember correctly. Nope. I thought I saved one of what an example would be. So I will actually post what I'm expecting, like what an example would be, but it would be something like this where you see all the work, and then at the very top would be this box. So notice that box, I can see the entire thing. I would want that all the way at the top of your note. Okay, I would want that at the top of your note so that I can see your name in the top right corner and then your overall score. Do you understand expectations for homework? Okay, if you are absent on WebAssign, like let's say you're absent tomorrow and I do a WebAssign, it now goes into your past assignments. And in order for you to submit it late, you have to do something called request an extension. You click a little thing that says request extension. I get a notification that says Daniela has requested extension for this WebAssign, and the reason why, you'll put I was absent on Friday, and I will grant you the extended access to that WebAssign. But you have to do it that way. You have to say request extension, otherwise it will lock you out. After 8 a.m. tomorrow, because that's when this is due, you will go back into WebAssign and you can check your answers. So all the answers will be there, okay? What's happening with WebAssign is you are getting different questions, and that's part of the reason we use it. These will be different depending on the person, okay? 1, teenagers cheat like heck, and it's not helping you at all in math, okay? So that's one of the reasons we're doing this. 2, this is how colleges and universities are assigning math work. You go into a lab, you fill this out. You do it at home, you fill this out. And in those environments, they will mark you wrong if your format is wrong. So we are exposing you to this now so that you, when you get to college, know exactly what you're doing. We've gotten lots of like emails and stuff from alumni that say, thank God I got exposed to this stuff early because now I'm not stressing about it in college, okay? The other great thing about it is notice under these questions, after you submit it, it will, well not now, but after you submit it, it will say practice another version, and there's your extra practice questions. So if you know you kept getting number 4 wrong on this homework, you can go back into this homework and click, request extended or request extra practice wins on number 4, and it will give you extra practice. Any questions for me as far as, let me get in here, I'll show you what the rubric says. As far as WebAssign goes? Okay, so if you look at tonight's homework, hopefully that was clear. I will post a sample of what I expect to see. Where's 1-1? There's the link directly to WebAssign. It says that will take you to the WebAssign module. How come it didn't refresh? Oh, there I am. Okay. It will take you to the WebAssign module. It says make sure you include the entire incorrect and correct box. Screenshot your results. Make sure your name is visible at the top right corner. Insert the picture at the top of the note, including all work. And for the questions that include graphs, you can feel free to screenshot those questions, bring them into Notability. Just make sure you show all your work on Notability. Here's your rubric. So 100 points is 80 to 100 with work. 90 is if you get a score within 70 to 80 and you're missing work. 88 is if you don't give me the entire results box. Right there, you lose 12 points. Don't do that. 85 is you didn't give me the score and I have to go to WebAssign and find it because that pisses me off because it takes me extra time. You lost 15 points. Okay? 80 is if you get between the 60 and 70 with no work, and then so on and so forth, obviously, as you work your way down. Questions for me? I will also say that these questions, while they do generate different values, are the same types of questions. So if you have a homework buddy that you work with or somebody that you're helping tutor, they are the same types of questions. I don't want to take away your ability to help each other out, to teach each other stuff. I want to take away the ability for you to copy homework. Those are two different things, okay? Questions? Everybody got access to WebAssign. Everybody sees the homework for today. All right, lovely people. Have a fantastic day. I will see you tomorrow. Don't get too frustrated. Bye. All right, so chapter 1.1 is called Lines and Planes, and it is exactly that. So remember, in the last couple sections, we kind of talked about like general graphs. Now we're going to narrow it down to just lines. Again, hopefully a lot of this is review. If you need me to elaborate on something, I'm moving too fast, just let me know. Okay, slope is how steep a line is. The variable for slope is m. And we do two things with this. You can either count it from a graph, and for that you would do change in y over change in x, literally count the rise and the run. And then if you had points, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and I just said it, but I'm going to add it on here. This would also be rise over run. We remember slope, right? Again, I know we have quarantine brain, so you're like, slope, huh? I think that sounds familiar. Hopefully now you remember what it is, okay? Rise over one. Silly mistakes made here is putting the x over the y. Obviously, you don't want to do that. You're rising, which is up and down. That's the y over the x. There are 4 types of slope. Positive, where it's increasing as you move from left to right. Negative, where it's decreasing as you move from left to right. No slope, which is vertical. And vertical is, no slope is the same thing as undefined slope. And a slope of 0, which is a horizontal. So if you ever, like on a treadmill and you start messing with the incline, if you think about it, if you're going up, right, that's the higher that is, the steeper it gets. If mine doesn't, but if your treadmill would dip down like you're walking down a hill, that would be a negative slope. If you could somehow get your treadmill to go straight up and down, you'd have a really hard time gripping because there's nothing to grip. There's no slope or undefined slope. And if it's flat and it's resting, it's horizontal. So we're going to review this again, but a vertical line is an x equals a number equation. There would be no y in this equation. And a horizontal line is a y equals a number equation, and there would be no x in that equation. There are three types of equations you're going to use here. The first is slope and intercept, which is probably the one you recognize the most, y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is your y-intercept, the y-coordinate of your y-intercept. That one you will sometimes plug into, but for the most part, you will actually leave your answers in that format. Then comes point slope, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is one I use to plug in when I given point and slope. And standard form, which is ax plus by equals c. This you will never plug into, okay? But you can get information from it. All of them have to be whole numbers, and x has to be positive in order for it to be a standard form. There's a shortcut for slope using standard form, which is m equals negative a over b. I'm going to take whatever is in front of the x, that's your a, change its sign, and put it over whatever is in front of the y, which is the b. So here's our first example. It just says find the slope of the line with the given information. The first thing it gives you is the slope, the coordinates of 2 points. So in that case, we're going to use m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Here's my x1, y1, x2, y2. It doesn't matter which ones you make the ones and the twos, as long as they are within the parentheses the same number, okay? So from here, I would get 7 minus 2 over negative 5 minus a negative 3. Minus a negative becomes plus 3, and I get 5 over negative 2. Now that can be written as exactly that. It could be written as negative 5 over 2 with the negative out front. It could be written as negative 5 over positive 2. Those all mean the same things. What we don't do with slope is ever put them in mixed number format. So you simplify fractions, but you never put slope in mixed number format. I would never change that to 2 1/2. On a quiz, if I was writing it in an open-ended format, it would be negative 5/2, like that, okay? You're going to see on WebAssign, and it's going to be something that's going to take a little bit of a learning curve, but you're going to get given an equation editor, kind of like what we did with the circles, only the equation editor on WebAssign is not quite as glitchy as it was on Canvas. And so you would actually create the fraction there, and you would do it that way. The negatives on WebAssign have to be a negative and not the hyphen on your keyboard. So that's one of the things that's kind of frustrating, takes you a little bit of time to get to know. All right, so then my slope from a graph is b, and so I want to count rise over run. It doesn't matter if I start here and go to here, or I go the other way. So let's try that one first. Rise 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a vertical change of positive 4, so up 4 would be positive 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back 4 is a negative 4. So rise is 4, run is negative 4, and that simplifies to negative 1. If I went the other way, if I started with the top point, I'd go down 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a negative 4. To the right, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a positive 4. And that slope would be negative 4 over positive 4, which still reduces to negative 1. So either way there, my slope is negative 1. Still good? Yes. Okay, today's the day we get to regain our confidence. All right, graphing a line using point and slope. So this is so silly, but I used to not go over this, and then a midterm would come, and everybody could do graphs of sines and graphs of quadratics and then I'd ask them to graph a line, and that would be what they get wrong. Okay, so obviously graphs of lines are super important. If I get an equation like y equals 2x minus 3, I'm going to start at the y-intercept, which would be negative 3. So 1, 2, 3, plot a point there. And then use my slope to get the next points. 2 would be the same thing as 2 over 1. So I'd go up 2 to the right 1, up 2 to the right 1, and I'd draw my line. That's not straight, but it would be because you do student notability. and your stuff would be prettier than mine. But you get the point, okay? That would be your graphed line. I would say give yourself 2 points unless it goes too far off the graph. As long as you can get one in there, you're good to get the straight line. Okay, horizontal and vertical lines. So I said this before when we were talking about slope. If it's a vertical line, if it's a line that runs up and down, because that's what a vertical line would be, right? So if it's something like this, then that is a y equals equation. I'm sorry, an x equals equation. So if I were to count, like let's say this was back 2, this would be at -2. So my equation there would be x equals -2. If you forget, think about the points on this line. No matter which of those points I plot, the y changes, but the x is always -2. So that's the one that stays the same. Horizontal lines are y equals equations. So if I had a line that ran through +2, this would be y equals +2. Again, if you forget, think about the points on this line. The x is changing now, but the y is always +2. Questions on those? Still doing good? Yeah, okay. Example 2 says find the slope and y-intercept and then graph. So I'll do one with you and then I'm gonna let you do the rest, okay? But the A question is giving to you in slope-intercept format. So I can easily identify the B, right? B is -1. If it asks for the y-intercept, I would put it in coordinate point form, which is 0, -1. If it just says B, -1, y-intercept, 0, -1. The M is 2, which would be 2 over 1 when I go to count it out. So I'm going to go to my graph. I'm going to start at 0, -1, and I'm going to go up 2 and to the right 1. Up 1, 2, to the right 1. I'm going to do it one more time because I've got the space, and I want to make sure my line is straight. And there's the first one. That's A. All right, so for letter B, your y-intercept is 2. Your slope is -3, which would be -3 over 1. This time I'm going to go up to point 2, which is +2. And then you have 2 choices. Either go down 1, 2, 3, and to the right 1, or you can go up 1, 2, 3, and to the left 1. Both times, one of the parts of your fraction are negative. Again, you just can't do both in the same direction. Then C is 3x plus 2y equals 6. So if it was just asking for slope here, I would do -a over b, right? Because that's my shortcut, which would be -3 over 2. But because I also need the y-intercept, I'm actually going to get this into slope-intercept format. So I'm going to solve for y. Divide everything by 2 at the end, and I get y equals -3 over 2 plus, 3 over 2x. Plus 3. Now I'm going to go to +3. I'll actually do this in a different color. Let me go to +3, plot my point, and then my slope is -3 over 2. So I go 1, 2, 3 down, 1, 2 to the right, or I go 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2 to the left. And that's C. Questions on those?
Could you do the shortcut for number, for C?
Like, explain it, or can you do it like when you do it?
Like you know how you said the A?
-a over b. So remember, the a is what's in front of the x. That would be the 3. The b is what's in front of the y, which is a +2. So we change this sign, we make it negative, and then it'd be 3 over 2. That just gets you the slope, though. So you'd still, in this case, you'd still have to get it into y equals mx plus b form to get the y-intercept. Or you could plug 0 in for x, like you have that option. Remember, y-intercepts would be plug 0 in for x. So if that's easier than getting it in a slope-intercept form, that works too. You could do it either way.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So for this one, you can't really use the shortcut?
No, you can use the shortcut to get the slope, but you still need the y-intercept.
Oh, okay.
Like if it was just asking for slope, does that make sense? If it's just asking for slope, then do the shortcut, get your answer. But if it's asking for the slope and the y-intercept so that you could graph it, then you got to do a little bit of work.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, example 3. Find the equation of a line with the given information. So now I'm giving all different kinds of information, and to be honest, depending on what kind of information I'm given, I might pick a different equation to plug into. So you can either plug into y equals mx plus b. If you were given the slope and the y-intercept, that's the easiest. You can plug into point slope, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I do that if I'm given point and slope. And then I wouldn't plug in a standard form. You don't have an A and a B, so you can't plug in a standard form. So for me, if it gives me point and slope like A does, I always plug in a point slope. Think about what you're given. Point, slope. The equation's name is point slope. So I would do, this is my x1, this is my y1, and I would do y minus y1 equals the m, which is 2, x stays as x, minus x1, which becomes minus a negative 1. Then I would get y minus 7 equals 2 times x plus 1. Distribute the 2 and add the 7. So unless it states otherwise, you will always answer in slope-intercept format. Unless otherwise stated. So unless stated otherwise, answers are always in y equals mx plus b. If it says put it in standard form, obviously you're putting it in standard form. But if it says slope-intercept or it doesn't indicate it, it's slope-intercept. All right, the other way to do it is to plug it into y equals mx plus b. So if that's the way you do it, that's fine too. So I'm going to do that same question, but in the different format. If I did that, then I would do y equals mx plus b. I would plug in for the y, the 7, plug in for the m, the 2, plug in for the x, the negative 1. B is my only variable left. I would solve this. 7 equals negative 2 plus b, add the 2. B equals 9. But then I have to plug back in the m and the b. So y equals 2x plus 9. Same answer, different method. You choose. I don't care which one you do. If I'm working questions out, I will usually do the point slope. All right, number 2, yes, you're going to get fractions. Guess what you're not allowed to do? Freak out, okay? This is m equals negative 3/4, and it passes through 3, negative 2. So I'm going to do point slope. Y minus, here's my x1, y1, negative 2 equals m, which is negative 3/4, times x minus 3. This becomes plus, and I get y plus 2 equals, distribute the 3/4. 3 over 1 times 3 over 4 becomes, this would be positive, 9/4. Subtract your 2. Y would equal negative 3/4 x. And then I'll do this over the side. 9/4 minus 2 over 1 becomes 8/4. So this is 1/4. So I have to convert that 2 over 1 to have the same denominator as the 9/4, and I want to combine them and get the 1/4. What I do not want to see here is decimals, okay? I want fractions.
Are we going to have to graph, like, equations with fractions in them?
Sure, maybe not. I don't think on WebAssign they do it, but I don't, yeah, sure. Like if I was going to graph that, I would go to 1/4, which would be about here, right? And then go down 1, 2, 3. Go down 3, 1, 2, 3 to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they won't be exact. They'll be an approximation, okay? But sure.
And how do you know if you go down or up? Like,
if it's negative, you can either go down and to the right or you can go up and to the left. Your choice.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, now C gives you 2 points, right? So I don't have my slope yet. Do you know how to find slope if I give you 2 points? How do you do that?
y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1.
Good. y2, which is 7, minus y1, which is 1, over x2, which is -8, minus x1, which is a -8 as well. This becomes 6 over 0. What is 6 divided by 0?
0.
Oh, every year. I get you. Every year. It happens every year. What happens when you divide by 0?
It's undefined.
It's undefined. If 0's in the top, it's 0. If it's in the bottom, it's undefined. So if I get slope that is undefined, can I plug that into an equation? Can you plug in undefined? No. So you have to know, okay, if the slope is undefined, what kind of line is it?
A vertical line.
It's a vertical line. And if it's a vertical line, what kind of equation is it?
Y equals.
X equals. Look at what doesn't change, right? The X is the one that doesn't change. So this equation is X equals -8. And you cannot get there by plugging in because you can't plug in undefined. So if the 0 was in the top, right, I'd get 0. 0 divided by anything is 0. I get 0 from my slope. You can plug that in if you don't remember if it's vertical or horizontal. But if you get undefined, you can't plug it in. You have to know that that means it's vertical. And if it's vertical, it's an X equals. Questions?
Did you get the -8 from like the two like
The two X values, yep. So if it's an X equals, when you look at your points, both of them will be the same. If it's a Y equals, when you look at your points, both will be the same.
So can you like sometimes just like assume if they're the
You
same?
sure can. If you wanted to graph that line, you could check it too.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Same X vertical, same Y horizontal. All right, last topic in this section is parallel and perpendicular lines. So parallel lines, and we learned about this in geometry, but we're talking about their slopes now. We're not talking about like the relationship of the angles and that kind of stuff. But parallel lines have the same slope. So if I said 2 lines were parallel, then they have the same slope. If 2 lines have the same slope, they're parallel both ways. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are the opposite reciprocals of each other. So if I said that a line has the slope of 2/3, then a line that is parallel to that has the same slope, which is 2/3. Those two little slide dashes is parallel, okay? If I said a line perpendicular to that, which is the upside down capital T, this would have the opposite, so it started positive, which means it's now negative, reciprocal, which means flip it. -3/2. If I gave you, I don't know, like -3 at the beginning, parallel would also be -3. Perpendicular, opposite is now positive. The reciprocal of -3 is 1/3. Questions on that one? So here's the easy application of it. Determine if the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So you're going to get information in different ways. Sometimes it's an equation, sometimes it's a graph, sometimes it's points. You got to figure out are those slopes the same. So if I look at A, both of these are already in slope-intercept format, which means I can just look directly at the m's, which are attached to the x. Are these the same? Are 2 and -2 the same? No. Are they opposite? Yes. Are they opposite reciprocals? No. So this is a neither. When in doubt, graph it. See what it looks like, okay? But don't take too much time on that. B, also in slope-intercept format, I can look at the m's. 1/3, -3. Clearly not the same, but this time they are opposite reciprocals. 3 flipped is 1/3. So this is a perpendicular, or the upside down T.
And it doesn't matter that the 3 is negative on the bottom.
It has to be the opposite sign.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if they're both positive, it's a no. Okay, now C, you got to do a little bit of work, right? Because I don't know the slopes yet, but we know how to find slopes if we're given 2 points. Here's our x1, y1, x2, y2. This would be 9 minus a -1 becomes +1 over 5 minus 0. That's 10 over 5, which is 2. Then I do the next one. x1, y1, x2, y2. 1 minus 3 over 4 minus 0. -2 over 4, -1/2. Now look at your slopes. Are they opposite reciprocals? Yes, so these are also perpendicular. Everybody still good? One last thing, which kind of puts the last two things together. So now we have to write the equation. Write the equation of a line through the given point that is A, parallel to, and B, perpendicular to the given line. That passes through -2/3 and 7/8. So here's the original line that I want to find the slope of and then figure out what the slope of a line parallel and perpendicular would be. Then it's two separate questions. Find the equation of a line with those slopes and this point. So two different slopes, one that is perpendicular and one's parallel. So the only thing I need this original line for is its slope. And this is where the shortcut comes in handy because that's in standard form. So the slope is -a over b, which would be -3/4. That's the slope of my original line. I want nothing else from that equation. And this is the biggest mistake people make. They take out the b and the slope. No. All we want from that original equation is its slope. Then we're done with it. Now I move on to this new line. One line that is A parallel. So if my slope of the original line is -3/4, what's the slope of a line parallel to that?
The same.
Same, -3/4. And then I'm going to find the equation of a line that's perpendicular to that. What's the slope of a line that's perpendicular to that original line? +4/3. Good. So for both of these, I'm using this point. -2/3, or never, sorry, -2/3, 7/8 with a slope of -3/4. And again here, -2/3 and 7/8. So I'm finding two different equations. I'm going to plug in a point slope, but remember you can also do slope intercept if you're more comfortable. So y minus y1 is 7/8 equals m, which is -3/4. X minus a -2/3 becomes +2/3. Distribute my slope, -3/4 x minus, when I multiply 3/4 times 2/3, I can cross 2 into 4, and the 3's get crossed, and I get 1/2. Then I'm going to add my 7/8. And I get y equals negative 3/4 x. Combine these two. So I have to change this. Multiply by 4 and 4. I'd get 4/8. And this is plus 3/8. Do not give me decimals. I want the fractions and I want them simplified. Questions on that one? Now I have to find the equation of a line through that same point, but perpendicular to my original one. So now I use y minus 7/8 equals, my m is 4/3 this time, x minus a negative 2/3, which becomes plus 2/3. Y minus 7/8 equals, distribute this in, 4/3 x plus, now I have to do 4/3 times 2/3, which is 8/9. Add the 7/8. Y equals 4/3 x. Now I got to change both these denominators, right? So this would become, I have to multiply by 8. I have to multiply by 9. 64/72 plus 63/72, which is 127/72. Check to see if it can be simplified. 2 can't go into both of them. The trick on 3s, add up your digits, right? 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 7 is 10. 3 doesn't go in there. I can't simplify this. It's going to stay the way it is. And again, I don't want mixed numbers there. I want improper fractions. If I go to graph it, now I have to make it a mixed number, right? I can't graph 127/72. I'd have to make that a mixed number. But for the answers, you can leave them as improper fractions. Questions on anything we talked about today? Again, hopefully I'll review, but sometimes we need the review. If I just gave you the homework, some of you might cry. Some of you still might cry. Hopefully not, but some of you still might cry. All right, questions before I get you in a WebAssign? All right, I need everybody's cameras on. Cameras on in front of the camera. Cameras on. Let me see your faces. So if you've gone out of Canvas, come back in.